But it's the same idea, you know. I mean, when we first start these practices, you know, the negativities are coming out. You know, we are purifying them and we are cleaning them, and they're coming out. You know, and so we should be happy about it. So, Master Shantideva goes through the four forces in a general way. We're going to go into, if you studied this before, we'll have a lot more detail tonight than in other presentations. Master Shantideva presents these four in a particular order. The four forces are presented in one certain order in the Lam Rim. And then in this sutra itself, on the sutra which teaches the four practices, these four are listed in a different order, and then Master Shantideva lists them in another order. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the order is. We're going to do Master Shantideva's order. So we're going to go through them in the order that he's using. Okay. So please say Nampar, Sun, Jimpe To. So okay, Top means force, right? It's one of the four forces. Nampar Sun Jimpa, it means to rip something out in a very nasty way, in a very sort of powerful, effective way. Like when you're gardening, you know, when you're doing dandelions, you can't just pull the leaves out. You got to get the root, right? You got to get in there and pull the entire root out, rip out the entire root. So it has the connotation of totally destroying something, ruining it, in a very effective and sort of powerful and nasty way. So we call it the force of destruction, or destruction force, because this is the one that has the energy that destroys the bad karma. This force actually contains the energy to damage the negative karma. This one really damages the negative karma badly. So there's something which is being damaged, and there's something behind the destruction, something which is causing the destruction. Right? What's being damaged?
Karmic seed.
Negative karmic seed. So what is it what is the force, what is the power, what is the energy that is destroying and damaging that negative seed? Any ideas?
Understand the energy.
Regret. Yeah, it's regret. Regret. So feeling sorry about it, right? Some feeling in one's heart some feeling in one's heart, and we'll talk about it, right? There's a classic example in the scripture that they used to illustrate regret, and they say, you know, I don't know what they had in Tibet, but three guys go into the yurt. I guess they had a yurt, and you know, they all order a drink from the same bottle, and it's poured out, and they all take their glass and they all salute, whatever they say in Tibet. I think they say hop. They say hop, and they shoot it down, and then they're chatting for a few minutes, and all of a sudden one guy starts convulsing and falls over dead. And then, you know, the other two guys are looking like, and then, you know, a little bit later, a few seconds later, the second guy starts convulsing and falls over on the floor dead. And then the third guy at that moment realizes there must have been some kind of poison or something nasty in that bottle, something that's going to kill him. So the two guys are dead. He drank the exact same thing, the exact same time. He's maybe got a few seconds to live, right? That feeling at that moment is the regret that Master Shantideva is talking about. You know you did something stupid. You know what the consequence is. You know it's going to happen. You know it's definite. You know it's imminent. And you feel regret. It's like, I can't believe this. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe what's going to happen to me. This, you know, sort of, you know, heart-rending experience, you know, this certainty, this heart-rending certainty of the inevitable suffering of the experience, you know, something like that, right? So that's the classic scriptural example of regret, right? So it's regret in the sense of, I mean, we're not going to drink poison to get over regret, right? We develop regret from the perspective of being a well-educated Buddhist, understanding karma and emptiness, right? We have to come to this regret, this intense feeling of regret, through intelligence and education and practice and understanding, right? A person who's trained to understand that when a karmic seed is planted, you will get a result. It's inevitable, you know. I can't believe I did that. I am so screwed, you know. I can't, you know, and like really feeling horrified, really feeling worried, you know. really feeling shocked and afraid. You know? Some kind of regret, or regret wrapped up into all that, right? So karma is very sneaky. It's very insidious. You know, I mean, in a minute of not paying attention, we can collect the karma to be born in the hell realms for many lives. You know, karma can just slip into the mind, right? It doesn't take much, and it doesn't take long to collect heavy negative karmas. You know? And it's very dangerous that way. It's very risky that way. You know, just sitting around, at a cafe, talking to people, talking to friends, saying exactly the wrong thing about exactly the wrong person can lead to massive suffering, karmically. So it's very dangerous. And if we know we've done something that's powerfully wrong, we get this sick feeling, right? Like this terrible sick feeling in our stomach about it. Like we just know, and it's like, oh man, that's the idea of regret. Now it's not guilt. It's not this sense of I'm a bad person, right? In Tibetan, there's no word for guilt. The concept of guilt isn't really part of the teachings or the society or the culture. Regret is about recognizing what we've done wrong, and it implies action. It implies correcting the mistake. It implies, okay, I know I screwed up. I recognize I screwed up. Now I got to go do whatever I got to do to fix it, and to clean it, and to make it right so that I don't suffer. So it's not about, we're not talking about this to somehow feel bad about ourselves, like, oh, I'm a bad person, I can't do anything right. It's not about lowering our self-esteem or going into despair or something like that, right? It's just about understanding how we hurt ourselves and what's going to happen to us in the future, and not wanting that to come about and trying to fix it, right? So, and then deciding, I'll do what I have to do to fix it, right? Like saying, oh, I'm so bad, I'm a really bad person, yeah, I know I did that wrong, and I was really bad, and I shouldn't have done it, and I feel really guilty about it. It doesn't fix the karma at all. It doesn't impact your negative karma at all. You could beat yourself up, self-flagellate, talk about whatever you want to talk about, but it's not going to change the karma at all. You have to do the four forces to change the karma. And it doesn't involve any kind of attack upon oneself, criticism of oneself, right? Guilt's not in the picture. The intelligent understanding, intelligent regret is in the picture, and that's what's required, and that's what we have to engage in, right? So, as we become better practices, we start to see it, right? We start to pay attention to our vows. Perhaps we're keeping our 6 times a day spiritual journal, watching our vows and our behavior, right? And we start to speak to someone, you might be in the middle of a sentence of saying something you shouldn't say, and you're like, and you stop yourself, right? That's virtue, that's practicing. That's very good, and that's what we should be doing. So the better we get at it, the less negativity we collect, right? And you can have regret in the midst of doing it and nip it in the bud, right? Instead of realizing it, the next day or the next week or whatever. Like, I had this thing where it was 6 months later before I even realized I'd done it. I was just like, oh crap, 6 months of karmic expansion, I am so screwed. When we start to recognize that in a normal office conversation, a normal 20-minute conversation with somebody, we can collect a huge amount of negative karma, right? Vast amounts of negative karma in a short period of time, right? So, when you start to pay attention, you realize, God, this is dangerous, right? And the scriptures say, look, when you start to pay attention, it's not that you're becoming worse. It's not that you're becoming a bad person. It's that you're seeing what was already always there. You're recognizing what was going on. Before you were just oblivious. Before you were clueless about what you were doing. Now you're paying attention, and you're seeing the behavior that's in place, intact, that's happening. And so, don't think that somehow because you are trying not to, that you're degenerating. You're not. It's simply awareness, right? You're just noticing what was always there for the first time. So don't get into this like I'm a bad person and everything is getting worse space, right? So you're not degenerating. You just have the intelligent regret of an educated Buddhist who knows they've collected negative karma. And you should feel regret. And you should be aware of it. And we should be like, oh man, I can't believe I did that, right? So, you know, if you think about the quantity of bad deeds that we can do in a day, it can get depressing. Right? I mean, it's just like, oh my God, how many, like I do my book, right? I do my book, and I get to the end of the day, I'm like, can I think of 3 good things I did today? And I'll be sitting there going like, I think of 1 good thing I did today. You know? Right? Fortunately, often I can't come up with 3 at least, right? So, good news is I have a hard time coming up with bad things that I did. So, it's okay. Please say Tengito.
Tengito.
Top again means force. Ten means foundation. Gi just means of. And this is the foundation force. Foundation is explained in 2 ways. One means when you fall down, right? If you're just walking and you fall down, you need to be able to press on something to stand back up. You need a ground to stand on, right? Like if you're on some kind of, if you're on ice or quicksand or something where it's hard to get any kind of stable foundation, it's hard to stand up and be solid, right? So foundation force is described as that. You know, it's a solid basis to be able to reassert yourself and to stand up and get clear and be firm, right? So there are 2. The second of the 2 is meaning you've done bad karma. You know, if you've done a bad karma, you need to reassert yourself to stop doing it. Okay. So when they talk about falling down, they say you've fallen down and you've collected bad karma, right? So this is the foundation force in the sense that you've fallen down and you've done bad karma, and you've fallen down and you need ground to stand up on again. So you've fallen down. So that's how they talk about falling down in 2 ways, having 2 connotations. That's all, not a big deal. But then they talk about 2 basics here, which are the foundation force, which are, anybody remember? How are you doing your karmic purification?
Refrain.
Ra is correct.
Refuge.
Refuge and
Bodhicitta.
Bodhicitta, right. So is going back to refuge and bodhicitta, right? So what do we do in the beginning of class when we're meditating? Has anybody noticed that in all this time? Does anyone notice what we do in the meditation at the beginning of class? I hope so. All right. There's a method to it, all right? Anywho, so, you know, you have to get back to the basics, right? We have to go back to the basics. Have to remember what we're supposed to be doing, what our behavior is supposed to be, what our intention is supposed to be, right? What our motivation and attitude in life are supposed to be, and then get back to that place, have that frame of reference for living and continuing on with the day and the way we engage other people, right? So, okay, that's called going back to the basics. So we have to have all 4 forces present to clean the bad karma, right? If we leave out one of the 4, you won't purify your negative karma, all right? So, please say Nyenpo, Kuntu, Chupeto. So Nyenpo means a fix, a counteragent, an antidote, any of those things. Okay. Counteragent force. Kuntu Chope means an activity, some kind of activity. And Top again is force. So it's some kind of make-up activity, some kind of force to make up for what you did, right? So again, you know, this is not about judgment. It's not about saying you're a bad person and now you know you sinned and you have to make up for it, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the intelligent regret of an educated Buddhist, right? Saying, I understand karma, I understand emptiness, I understand that I've harmed myself or someone else in some way, and I understand that I'm going to suffer as a result of that, right? And I want to fix it. I don't want that to happen, right? So it's like that. Now, what am I going to do about it? Right? I mean, let's presume we've done the other two forces, right? Let's presume that we've generated some feeling of regret, like I can't believe I did that, and I feel horrified that I've been sick that I did that, right? And then, what was the second force?
Foundation.
Yeah, and so what would we do?
Go back to you. Remember.
I mean, what might you think, for example, if you did some negative karma?
You remember karma.
You think, damn, I hurt them instead of helping them, right? I was supposed to be trying to help people, and I just hurt somebody, right? How's that bodhicitta? How's that being a bodhisattva, right? And, what is this refuge thing? What am I taking refuge in? Well, this idea of emptiness, right? People who have seen emptiness, teachings on emptiness, those who have become fully realized through emptiness, right? If I understand emptiness, and if I understand bodhicitta, if I understand karma, I have a pretty good basis to get clear on what I'm supposed to be doing, right? How I'm supposed to be thinking, right? So that's foundation force. So we got our regret, we have our corrected motivation, you could say, right, as a foundation force. And so then we get into the next force, which is some kind of makeup activity, right? Saying I'm sorry is always good. I think as Buddhists we're like, let's study the scriptures on this matter. I will engage in the antidote of reading the scriptures to make up for telling that person they were an idiot. You can always just go over to the person and say, I'm really sorry I called you an idiot. That's good too, right? It's a good start, right? It's not in the scripture, but just practically speaking, right? Right? So this third force, it's not about judgment. It's not about you're a bad person, you have to somehow atone for your sins. It's about recognizing the laws of karma, recognizing this is going to come back to you, and recognizing you have to fix it. Now, what do I do to fix it? Okay, I've got the regret. Okay, I've got the corrected motivation. Now what do I do? How do I fix it? Right? So then there are these various antidote activities that we can engage in. Right? And so there are 6 listed in the text, 6 antidote activities. And it's just, we have this cold calculated thing where we know I know I've planted a very powerful negative seed which is going to blow up my life sometime later, right? And I got to go on a search and destroy mission and get rid of that thing, So, but guess what? Can we stop ourselves from having thoughts when we're irritated at people? No, we can't control our mind, right? Can we stop ourselves from getting angry at people? Not generally. I mean, it's a question of degree, right? Maybe we can tone it down a bit, right? So there's an art of destroying these seeds, right? And we have to learn the art of destroying these negative seeds because we can't control ourselves. As ordinary human beings, we don't have the capacity to control ourselves all day, every day. It's just facts of life, right? I mean, do you know any ordinary human beings who never say anything wrong, never think anything harmful, or never engage with anyone in any unpleasant way ever, all day, every day? No, because then they wouldn't be an ordinary human being. Right? He'd be a higher spiritual being, by definition. So as humans, it's just the way it is. It's just facts of life, okay? So we have to learn the art and the science of cleaning these negative seeds, which we will inevitably collect, right, as part of our existence, right? We have to become masters at the art of removing the bad karma because we can't stop ourselves from collecting it right now, right? So it's extremely important. So there are 6 different activities listed in the sutra. All of them are make-up activities. Please say Dode, Sambo, La Tempa. So Dode means sutras, spoken by the Buddha, right? Recorded teachings from the actual Buddha that were recorded. Sambo means profound, which is a code word for emptiness. Yeah, it's profound is a code word for emptiness. And Tempa means to study the scriptures, which treat it. So, studying the scriptures on emptiness is the first antidote to purify negative karma. First of your options. You don't have to do all 6. Pick the one that happens to feel best for your circumstance. Right? So, that's a classic makeup activity. But it has to be very specific, right? I mean, it can't just be like, well, I'll read a book on emptiness before I go to bed, and that'll somehow take care of it. It's not like that, right? It's like, I screwed up. You know, I've been angry at this person all day. I've been annoyed and irritated at this person all day. You know, I've been bugged about this interaction we had all day. Okay, and you know, I've had afflictions and negative thoughts toward them, and wanted them to not be happy, and you know, hope that you know I win and they lose, and whatever it is, you know. And so it needs to be like, okay, I had all that going on, and now I'm going to study emptiness to counteract that specific thing. You know, it's not enough to say, I think I read a book on emptiness yesterday. Okay, and somehow that'll take care of it. It's very specific, all right?
John, did they mention specific scriptures, or did they just say scriptures on emptiness?
You know, it says, at the level you understand it, to the extent you understand it, work from there.
So it's your choice.
It's where you are. I mean, it's not like if you can't read, you know, Madhyamaka, then you can't purify your negative karma, right? It's, you know, at the level of your practice, at the level of your understanding, work at that level. Because the point is to understand it more and to increase it, right? Okay. And it doesn't have to be like 3 hours of reading, okay? You know, 15, 20 minutes is fine. It doesn't have to be, you know, you finish the book to purify the karma. So, second, please say Tompa Ni.
Tompa Ni.
Gompa.
Gompa.
Gompa means meditating. Tompa Ni means shunyata, emptiness, right? And this is the single most powerful antidote that you can engage in. We talked about it when we studied the Dhammapada Sutra, right? If you understand emptiness very well, then you also understand karma very well. And you understand the dynamics of bad karma as a result. You have to understand the dynamics of bad karma. So, if we don't understand emptiness, we will not be able to understand bad karma and the dynamics of bad karma. So, have to understand. Emptiness is really critical. And that's why it's such a good make-up activity. Because of the relationship between karma and emptiness, right? The more one understands emptiness, the more one understands karma. And therefore, the more effective it is to purify negative karma. Right? Okay. So the books say meditate on emptiness to the best of your ability. Right? If you don't understand it very clearly, that's fine, no problem. Just work at your ability. Right? Review it and study it more at your level of ability. Okay? Just try to improve it every day. Please say tempa, la tempa.
Tempa la tempa.
Depa.
Depa
La
la
tempa.
tempa.
Depa.
Depa
La tempa.
la tempa.
Depa means to repeat.
Okay.
Like over and over again. Right? To recite over and over again. And tempa is practice. In this case, it refers to secret mantras, specifically reciting secret mantras, which I can't tell you about because they're secret. But that's what it means. There is a text, however, Pramanavartika, Master Dharmakirti's second chapter, which is a sutra and an open teaching, so we can talk about the contents of that book. You know, to talk about the secret teachings, you have to get initiation. To get initiation, you have to study sutra. Here we are. Right? All right. So Master Dharmakirti says 2 conditions have to be present for a mantra to work. Anybody know? Well, first I have to tell you a story. I was on the subway last week, and I was talking to a lady, and she's like, "Yeah, I was with my yoga trainer, and you know, he gave me a mantra." Oh, she said, "I asked him for a mantra," and he's like, "Well, just pick your own, right?" He's like, "You pick your mantra. You make up the mantra and decide what it's going to be, and that'll be your mantra, right?" And she's like, "Oh, okay." Well, so I thought for a minute, and I was like, and I decided on something, and I picked it, and I told him, I was like, "Can that be my mantra?" He's like, "Sure, fine, that's your mantra." Okay, just recite that mantra. So, not that way. I'm not going to elaborate anymore, but go ahead. You're saying the 2 things have to be present.
The master who speaks it has to speak it directly to the student, and has to be a pure master of that mantra specifically. From my understanding.
Sort of.
The student need to keep morality very pure.
Yeah, and the student's morality.
Right, well, that was 4. There were 3. I'm not sure which. Pick 2.
The teacher has to deliver it to to the student.
And what's the second one? That's okay. Give me two.
And the student needs to be pure of heart.
We got the pure of heart is correct. I mean, you can't just, it's like some people say, give me Namo Renge Kyo, and I'll just like be a crazy person and recite it and get $1 million. Okay? I've met people who are like that. They're like, look, you say the mantra, you get the result, don't change a thing in your life otherwise. Not necessary, right? That is espoused. Not according to the system. According to this system, it doesn't matter if you have a qualified mantra if you're not a well-intentioned person. If you're not pure of heart or ethical predisposition, if one's not trying to be virtuous, it doesn't matter. You can't just have a crazy, corrupt mind and say a mantra and think everything's going to be okay, right? Oh, let me just recite the mantra all day long and I'll just get about my business. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Okay. The other thing is that the mantra has to have been composed by some very holy being or enlightened being. Okay. The original composition has to have been from a very holy or enlightened being. An authentic source, according to Master Dharmakirti. If those two conditions are present, then a mantra can have incredible power and bring incredible results, and including karmic purification, and including to be used in karmic purification. Like typically Bodhisattva mantra, for example, is used in karmic purification in that practice. All right. Okay, please say Kusuk.
Kusuk.
Latempa.
Latempa.
Kusuk means holy body. Latempa is the practice of the holy body. Any ideas? Painting. Yeah, it's Jason Kappa mentions altars, for example, making holy altars. Other scriptures mention painting holy images, making holy statues. There's something called the Satsa practice, where people make molds and they cast many, many, many plaster reliefs of holy images.
John, it's making them, it's not making offerings and stuff like that. It's actually making them.
Yeah, it's the practice of the holy body. So building the altar, making the statue, making the painting, because offering is the preliminary that we talked about, right? So this is actually an antidote activity. It's interesting if you think about it. It's like, create a holy image or a holy form or some holy object in the world. You're bringing some physical, tangible thing into existence in the world, right? It's interesting if you think about it on that level. It's not like a wish or an aspiration or a thought. It's like, there's actually something sitting over there that I put there that's now there that wasn't there before. There's something to that, right? And everybody who walks in the room sees it and has an experience of it, interacts with it, right? Etc.
Is that
John? With regard to making, like building a statue or making a painting, would you say that would have to, people who are not trained, because aren't there specific
parameters?
Yeah, for making
I guess it depends who you talk to, because there's a whole lot of different Buddha statues out there in the world, right? Some have big bellies, some are tall and thin, some are sitting, some are standing, some are lying, right?
Well, okay, for instance, I've taken some classes with Pamela, and they're very specific.
Yeah.
So, and
in the Tibetan Buddhist system, right? There in the classical Thangka painting, it's very prescribed, right? Now, does that mean that everybody in Korea got it wrong?
Yes.
This is just the.
Yes.
Are they not planting farmers? Are they not planting farmers as they're painting?
Yeah, well,
This is
it's
just
about
the
the
intention
intention.
that you're trying to.
Well, I ask you, does everybody from Japan or Korea or Latin America who has a different sort of proportion and representation of the form, did they get it wrong? Is it not a holy image?
Well, isn't one of the refuge vows treating any representation of the Buddha as though as the Buddha himself, right? So that would suggest that regardless of the quality of the artistry, that it's still a meaningful representation.
I ask you.
Well, I say yes, and I think it's a good thing.
And let's move on. Yeah. No, we have a vow. One of our vows is to not disparage the workmanship of statues or the images. Say, oh, that one isn't made so well, or that artisan didn't do such a good job, or wasn't very skilled, right?
Well, no, but I would think that if you're undertaking an action like that, you'd want to be very mindful.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to just churn out.
You don't want to make a sloppy, woolly image, intentionally. I would agree with that.
Intentionally.
But again, does one have to be a classically trained Tonka painter for it to be a legitimate painting? You say, no, I don't think. Personally, I don't think so. Is it nice to be able to make a classical Tonka? I'm sure, but it doesn't mean that anybody who's a watercolor artist or an abstract expressionist or whatever else who tries to paint a holy image is not doing it, or is somehow not doing the antidote, not engaging the antidote correctly.
Provided, again, they have the right motivation.
Yeah, I mean, if they're just painting a picture to sell it for a nice commission, then that's not really a karmic purification, as we're speaking about it, And again, when we talk about it's a good point, Lee. When we talk about these things, they're not sort of ancillary activities that we happen to do by the way. It's like, oh, I painted a Buddha picture today, and I'll just apply that one to my negative karma, I have a bunch of Buddha pictures in the closet, and I'll just apply them as needed to my negativity, right? Not like that. It's intentional and specific. I, ran over a dog by mistake and killed it, I'm going to make, holy images, with the dog in the picture, as a karmic purification. Or I'm just making something up, something.
Can I share a quick story?
Sure, please.
I met this monk in Nepal who had been traveling through the wild regions, and he looked a little wild. And we were talking, and he had this holy image that he kept talking about, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, and he kept talking about it, and he goes, I carry it with me everywhere, it's the most special. And I've got this perfect picture of Guru Rinpoche, the guy with the googly eyes, right? And he opens it up, and it's a stick figure that he'd drawn. He'd drawn himself, but he had flowers in that thing. It was his most holy image. It was just a stick figure with the big googly eyes. And for him, it was the purest thing he'd ever seen. It was like amazing.
Yeah. No doubt extensive practice relative to it as well.
Yeah.
Probably some serious virtue accumulated around that thing, right? Right? Okay. Please say Chupa la Tempa.
Chupa la Tempa.
Chupa is offerings, la Tempa is practice. We talked about offerings already, right? So we don't need to talk about it again. Went through it. Giving away the sunset, and that kind of stuff. And then keep in mind when we're making offerings, right, that we break a Bodhisattva vow if we don't think about helping other people when we're using things or doing things, right? So, we're supposed to be thinking, I'm getting dressed to help people today. I'm riding the subway to help people today. The reason I'm eating breakfast is so that I can lead everyone from suffering. We have a Bodhisattva vow where we're walking down the street. We're meant to be walking down the street thinking, I'm walking down the street to benefit every living being. And if we're not doing that in all of our activities, then we're actually breaking Bodhisattva vow, sadly. Breaking the advices on Bodhisattvas, right? So, you have to be thinking, I'm brushing my teeth for other beings, not just so they don't smell my breath, but ultimately, right? I suppose you can. But so that I can serve other people properly, right? And it's when I think about this, I think this is really tough. How are you going to do that, right? Like, how am I going to walk down the street? How am I going to get down the steps? Thinking I'm walking down the steps to help other people. Okay, I thought it. I'm on step 2. What do I do for the rest of the steps? Right? Right? So how are we supposed to do this? Is this just pie in the sky? It's like you bet your ass it is. He's like they're delusional. Nobody can do this.
The first time is sincere. The rest is piety.
Listen, I hear you, but how to say it? I would say yes and no. Okay, it may start there. But the bottom line is, we are supposed to be filling our mind with virtue all day long, right? I mean, that is the bottom line of our practice, right? My mind is supposed to have as its content virtue all the time, nonstop. And so that's how it ties in, right? It can't be filled with thoughts of affliction and whatever, right? Otherwise, we're collecting the wrong karma. We're not doing what we talked about earlier tonight, right? Stopping the collection of new negative karma, right? So that's really it. That is the path in Buddhism, right? And we've got to be honest with ourselves as to whether or not we're doing it, right? Like, what percentage of my day is my mind filled with dreck, and what percentage of my day is it filled with pure, holy, virtuous content? That's it. That is it, you know? All the teachings, all the permutations, all the practices, it comes back to that, right? So, and in that context, if one is clear on that, when one sees oneself do some kind of negativity, it feels horrible, you know? Because it's so opposite of what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, like, in that regard, it's almost, I mean, it's very similar to mantra in a way. If you're constantly thinking this, even if it is piety over and over again, doesn't it gain power? And doesn't it train your mind to think that in a real way more often if you have the correct intent?
One of the qualities of mantra is that it protects your mind. And that's one of the ways in which it protects your mind. But I can't talk about that. Okay, where were we?
6.
Number 6. What's number 6? Senla Tempa. You did Senla?
No.
Senla Tempa. Please say it. Senla Tempa.
Senla Tempa.
Tempa means what?
Practice.
And Sen means name. Name. To practice names. To learn and recite the names of holy beings. Reciting the name of a holy being is great virtue, right? Like there's the practice of 35 medicine Buddhas, which is very popular in some Dharma centers. Reciting the names of 35 Buddhas, or reciting the names of lineage lamas, for example. You know, there's a particular holy being that you will connect with, a particular enlightened being that you will connect with, that you have your special connection with. We all do. And when you make that connection, you'll know it, and then that being's name is precious and holy, right? And so reciting the name of your holy teacher, right, is the most powerful mantra, is the highest mantra, you know. You say Om Arya Sumati Dharmadara Om Pe, you know, Om Chenma Oselma Om Pe, you know, I mean, whomever your teacher is, right? You recite their name, and that is your most powerful mantra. So it's a great karma, and so doing it over and over again is what they're talking about here, you know, and it collects a great goodness, and it purifies negative karma and protects your mind, right? So if they're a pure being and a perfect being, just reciting their name with devotion, you know, has some impact. And what about just reciting a name, blah blah? Same difference?
Probably not so much.
I mean, I don't know, say Rudy Giuliani 100 times in a row. Does it do anything for you? I don't know.
That's who they are to you.
It's like a good idea.
You know? So, I mean, it's a very different feeling to just say an ordinary name. I'm not picking on Rudy Giuliani at all. Just made up any ordinary name. It doesn't matter, you know? I mean, pick a ball player, Derek Jeter. Say Derek Jeter 100 times in a row, you know? Doesn't matter. He's like, that's a holy name, okay. So, you know, the point is, you know, saying an ordinary name over and over is kind of meaningless, you know? It is meaningless. But if you have some kind of devotional feeling in one's heart, and one is saying the name over and over and again, it's very powerful, right? It's that cultivating and increasing the devotion and the feeling and the relationship, the strengthening and building of the relationship, right? Very powerful stuff. Okay. Then the last force, the fourth force, please say Nepa, Le, Larn, Dokpe, Top. Okay, Nepa means bad deed. Le, Larn, Dokpe means to restrain yourself, literally to turn away from. And what does Top mean?
Force.
Thank you. So this is some kind of resolution not to do it again. All right? Resolving not to do it again. And this is the hardest one. You know, stopping yourself is the hardest one. Right? It's like if you're not going to smoke anymore, I swear I'm going to quit. Right? It's great that you swore that you're going to quit smoking. Can you do it? Right? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's great that you said 100 times, I swear I'm going to quit smoking. You know, it's great that you went to that smoking cessation class as an antidote. But did you stop? Right? All right. So it's a decision, right? I mean, number 4 means you make a decision, you're not going to do it again. Now, in the oral tradition, the lineage lamas say, listen, you probably can't stop. So don't add the misdeed of lying in your purification process, you know, to the other negative karma that you collected. You know, don't lie while you're trying to purify and thereby collect more negative karma instead of purifying. Okay? Don't say, I will never ever yell at anyone again. All right? I will never get angry at my wife again. Don't say it, because it's not true, and you'll just lie. You know? All right? Okay? So the lamas of the lineage, when they get to this part in the oral tradition, they always say, look, set a time limit. Okay? Don't say I'm never going to do it again. If it's a really heavy misdeed, like, you know, I killed someone, then you could say, you know, an abortion, whatever, you know, I'll never do it again, period, in my entire life. You know, if it's a medium deed, you know, like I was screaming at the guy, I screamed at my employee, I lost control, you know. And, you know, they say, you know, well, probably you can be mindful for 2 or 3 days on a moderate misdeed, you know, restraining yourself. If you normally a person would have mindfulness for be able to have mindfulness for a couple of days, you know, and try to restrain yourself as long as you can without breaking it, right? But then they say, listen, mental, very hard, very difficult, very slippery, right? Very subtle, you know. Not being irritated, right? In your mind, you might not be able to go for a minute, right? Yeah, right. I mean, I hear people sometimes, you know, before they finish the purification, they've already broken it. I hear it happens, you know. So, yeah, you have to be careful with the mental ones. I mean, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. It just depends upon you and where you are, right? So, mental ones are very delicate, very difficult. It's all about how long can you concentrate and focus your mind and maintain awareness, right? And that's everybody's unique, right? So, set a time, okay? All right. So. We'll take a break. Any questions before we take a break? Yeah.
So is there a single phrase that you would refer to step number 4 as?
So it's called the restraint force. And that means refraining from doing it, resolving not to do it.
And one other question. What is the difference in this order of Master Chanted Devas and the one that was more sutra in nature?
You know, I don't know what order the sutra lists them in offhand. I believe, just from memory, that they start with the foundation first. Foundation force first. You know, it's like you screwed up, get your frame of reference, remember your motivation. Once you got your motivation straight, then go into regret and the rest. Okay, please have a break. And then we'll continue. If you're missing any